The thing is with coaching, the bar to entry is almost non-existent,
For sure.
but the bar to success is really high.
What's up, friends? Welcome back to my channel. Hi if you're new here, hi if you're not. I saw someone on TikTok do this and I thought it was kind of funny, so here we are. For those of you that watch my channel who also frequent the Life Coach Snark subreddit, you might recognize today's guest under the Reddit username The Angry Coach. Tim Brownson has been a coach for close to, if not over 20 years now. And we were able to sit down about a month ago and just chat about his experiences and observations within the coaching industry. And I am super excited to share that conversation with you. Now, in case you live under a rock and you missed the memo, we as in me and you and those of you that watch my YouTube content, we have our own subreddit over on Reddit, which I will link the details of down in the description box below. Lots of opportunity there to share content with me that you want me to react to. We can hang out, chat, have a good time, snark on the internet like we're so good at, and I make some announcements there as well. So if you use Reddit and you want to come hang out with me and all of my friends here on the internet, that's going to be the place to do it. Now, back to the interview with Tim. Our conversation covers a lot, as you can probably tell, because I think this video is like an hour long. We talk about the truths of building an actual coaching business, red flags to look out for. We cover problematic marketing found in the current iteration of the space, and Tim's journey as the original coach that coaches other coaches, which is interesting to hear from an insider perspective. So whether you're a current coach, an aspiring coach, or you're just here for the snark, this is going to be the interview for you, my friend. I really think there is something to take away from this interview for everyone. So buckle up and let's go ahead and get into it. That's enough for me. You know the drill. Big shout out to my channel VIP members. Thank you so much for being here. Also shout out to Harrison, Tom, and Suzanne in the billionaire tier. We're getting rich up in here. If you want to learn how to get rich and you want early access to all of my content here on YouTube, consider clicking the join button down below, and let's go ahead and jump into the interview.
Well, my name is Tim Brownson. I got into coaching in 2005. I did my training in the UK in 2005, really just to help with stress management. I'd done a stress management course at Sheffield University in 2004. I just really liked it. I just really liked coaching, but I had no real plans on becoming a coach. But we were planning to move to the US, to Florida, in February 2006. Once I got into coaching, I then did a load of NLP. I just got really hooked by it, and I just walked away from my job, like a six-figure job, 7 months before I was supposed to. A bit of a shock to my wife, getting home and said, "Did I have resigned? I'm going to be a coach." So I then spent a few months setting that up, and then we moved to Florida in 2006 in February. And I was then a full-time coach, but I really didn't know what I was doing. You know, I'd had 20 years in sales, so I was probably a bit arrogant. I probably thought, well, this is, I'm very well qualified. I took loads of training, spent about 20 grand on training. And suddenly I realized, I still remember the point where I realized this is not quite what it should be. So I was sat out we'd rented a house for 18 months with a pool. And I was sat outside the back about 5:30 or whatever. My wife had been to work. She's a nurse practitioner, an oncology nurse practitioner. And she got home. I sat outside with the dogs, just drinking a beer and reading a book. And she walked through the patio doors and she looked at me and she looked at the pool and she looked at the dogs and she said, "We're not on fucking holiday, or vacation," as you guys would say. And I sat there and thought, yeah, I am treating this like, one extent. I was working 9 to 5 and then just going and sitting out by the pool. And that's when I realized I've got to learn what I'm doing, because people aren't coming to me. The whole build it. I actually wrote a blog post called "If You Build It, They Won't Come," probably 15 years ago now. And I really thought that. I kind of dove into online marketing. Obviously, SEO was in its early days then. And just connected with a lot of other people in self-development. There weren't many coaches then, but there was a big sort of network of self-development bloggers. And I got to know pretty much all them, and just really got into it from there. And over the next couple of years, built my business just on cranking out loads of content and understanding SEO and marketing stuff.
Did you start a blog? Is that kind of how you were first gaining traction?
Yeah. So I was fortunate enough that the guy who I hired to help me with my website, he basically just said, blog, you need to blog. I don't think he really knew why. And so back in the day, there was no, Well, there was WordPress then, but it was in its really early days. So we had a static site that was built on HTML, and then we had a WordPress site. We used to blog on there, and then we'd link everything through. So that was really lucky, because if I hadn't have done that, so I kind of established. I had a lot of luck in those days. I managed to establish myself before the gold rush. So it's much easier to maintain a position. You couldn't do now what I did. Too much competition plus AI. So, Google couldn't give a shit about content now. But back in the day, producing content, that was the thing that separated you. So that's what I did. So there was a certain element of luck in that, but also that I really enjoy writing. And I've always been okay as a writer. I'm very quirky in the way I write. I use a lot of humor, typical English, sort of brought up on Monty Python, Blackadder type humor. And some people really gel with that. Other people think I'm a fucking idiot, and that's fine. That's how it should be as coaches. We kind of need to polarize people. So I built it from there, and doing a lot of guest posting. So I wrote about 150 guest posts over a 3-year period, and that obviously brought backlinks, brought traffic to the site. The site at one point was getting like 1,500 unique visitors a day, so about 50,000 unique visitors a month, which for a single life coach, that's quite a lot of traffic. I had at one point close on 12,000 newsletter subscribers, so it was fairly easy. But I still didn't really, even then, I didn't really know how to sell myself. It was basically, look, I'm here, anybody. If anybody wants to hire me, which is why I get frustrated now with coaches that don't. You have to sell yourself. You just do. You can't. There's no business can just sit there and wait for traffic to come to them, for clients to come. Then you've got to go out and get it. And I'm terrible at self-promoting. Well, I'm much better now. It always feels a little bit icky, which is why some of the people in our industry just, I'm just like, it's so frustrating to see them doing well, for somebody like me.
Yeah, I work now mostly in like marketing consulting, and even like the number one thing that I tell clients when I'm working with them is like, you have to talk about what you're selling over and over again, because no one gives a shit about you. You can show up and be a life coach, you can be selling freaking headphones, it doesn't matter. But if you're just like, oh, hey, I sell this thing, like no one really cares. It's like giving them that reason.
I worked for Yellow Pages back in the day, when Yellow Pages, that was the thing to have for any local business. It basically, that was how they made their money. And people used to say, oh, it must sell itself. Are you kidding me? That was there was a reason why Yellow Pages sells people outside of IT with the highest paid, because it was really hard getting those people to buy. And you're just like, what the fuck? This is going to make you more money than you can imagine. People are like, oh, I don't know if I need Yellow Pages, So yeah, anything, doesn't matter how good it is. There's maybe like a handful of really, really high end things that there's more that there's not enough supply, but it's so few. It's never going to happen to a coach.
No, and especially not in this landscape where it's so easily accessible to start a coaching business now and to market a coaching business that all it takes is one person showing up making 10 times as much content as you, and you don't exist anymore.
Exactly. The thing is with coaching, the bar to entry is almost non-existent.
For sure.
The bar to success is really high. And a lot of coaches see the bar to entry. I can do that because my mate Susan said I'm really good. And I told her to leave her husband when he put his socks in the wrong drawer. So I'll go and be a life coach to tell people it's not really what coaching is. But you can actually go and do that. But that, to me, I genuinely think 99% of coaches are not making enough money to make it financially sustainable in the long term. It's fine if it's a hobby, they're just doing it on the side, but not many coaches are actually making 50 grand, or as the ICF delusionally tries to suggest, the average of 72 grand, was it, on the last global survey?
Yeah.
I think somebody's got the decimal point in the wrong place there.
Yeah. Or it's like, I guess it's just skewing the average, because if one person's making like $10 million and everyone else is making zero, then it's got to average out at some point.
Plus, they only polled ICF members. Plus, if you're one of those ICF members who's earning nothing, do you want to fill in a survey? because you feel
Exactly.
probably bad on yourself. Well, this is my fault. I've done all this. I can't make it work. So they beat themselves up. So, but if you're on 150, let me fucking tell the ICF I'm earning 150K. They can't wait to fill in a survey like that. So I don't, I did a conversation this morning actually with somebody from LinkedIn, and we just had a Zoom call, and he is just after a number of years, over 10 years, he's about to let his ICF membership go, and he was an ICF mentor coach, and he just said it's just getting ridiculous. And I said I actually wrote an article called "Is the ICF a Pyramid Scheme?" and he said it absolutely is. It's just he actually didn't say that, but I don't think he was. But he said that without saying that. He agreed. He just said it's just coaches making money from coaching coaches, which is the definition of a pyramid scheme, where the people below you, if you can't make money from them, it just all comes tumbling down.
Exactly. So I guess I'd be curious to hear more about your journey through the industry. So what kind of clients were you working with initially? How has that evolved over time, especially as the industry itself has shifted? What does that look like for you?
So originally I had a super tight niche. It was people, basically. It was just like, if you could breathe on a mirror, I would take you. I'm embarrassed to say my first business card said, a daring adventure, life and business coach, no, personal and business coach. So it's just, I would just work with anybody. I did talk a lot about stress management, but what I didn't know at the time that is apparent now when I look back, even though I didn't have a niche, because I'm always saying to coaches, you've got to have a niche. You actually don't, but I can't afford to say you don't have to have a niche, or you don't sometimes have to have a niche, because then coaches will say, oh, right, I don't have to have a niche, and it makes it really hard. But you have to have a strong brand. So what I had was a brand that I wasn't branding myself sort of consciously. It's just, I was just being myself, So I was lucky that I'm fairly extrovert and loudmouthed, and will say things as I see them. And, I've fallen out with a number of people in the industry over it, because I've called them out for bullshitting. I won't name names, but there's a few. So that helped me stand out. So for about 2006 to about 2010, and then what started to happen is more and more coaches were just coming to me because they could see what I'd done, because I was fairly visible in the coaching field. So they'd come and just say, can you help me do what you've done? And so I started running courses, and I just really enjoyed it, because obviously with traditional coaching, with proactive coaching, it's all about asking questions. We're really facilitators. And that's what I was trained in. And that kind of, you can't really be opinionated as a true coach. You've got to ask questions, and the best results you get, often the client doesn't know it was you that asked the killer question at the right time. So your ego's going, oh, it was me, but you can't say anything. And what working with coaches allowed me to do was go back and forth. So a bit of coaching, and then it would be like, you don't really want to do that because it's not going to work. There was some more stuff that was a little bit more, objective, and some stuff that was subjective. So I'd go back. I just really enjoyed it. So I drifted into doing more and more. So I set up a separate website. It was called Coach the Life Coach back then, because that was good for SEO. It's a sucky title now. And I was running them side by side. I took on a partner in that, which didn't quite work out, although I was still friends with him. And I just much preferred it. So I stopped doing any work around a daring adventure, and just carried on building that. And that, obviously, you get something called content decay if you're not putting new content up. I'm sure you know that. So that started to slide in the rankings. And I just really put all my effort. And I've never actually stopped doing that. I still get the occasional inquiry. I worked with 3 people, I think, last year that came through referral on just pure life coaching. But I just like I like the technical element of marketing. I like the competitive element as well. It's just like, I want to get above that person. I want to, especially if it's somebody, there's a number of people, well, one in particular in this country, I really want to get above with SEO, because I really don't like his tactics and his methods. He's one of these, he's running an award scheme for coaches. So, be featured on my here, and they're basically unwittingly linking back to him. So he's getting all these dozens, if not scores of backlinks, and he's ranking really highly now. And these people think they've got an award, and there's like 1,000 people that got the same award. So I love that element of it, the competitiveness. So I'm fortunate. I actually like marketing. I know a lot of coaches don't, but it's just me.
No, that's great. It's kind of cool to hear the transition over time and what that's looked like. And I guess considering you've been in the industry now for close to 20 years, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 20 years.
How has it been watching the sort of evolution that we've seen, especially in the last like 10 years or so, I would say, with the rise of like Instagram, TikTok, that kind of thing, and these like kind of what we were talking about earlier, I guess, the like low barrier to entry, people just deciding to become a life coach on a whim, hoping they're going to make $1 million and being sold on this dream that that's exactly how it's going to play out. I'd just be curious from your perspective as someone, who's kind of seen, I'm sure, that transition, what that's looked like from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it started really slowly. It was like a slow sort of ramp up, which was going on until probably about a couple of years before the pandemic. We could see more and more people, and it was on the back of really dishonest marketing of life coaching as an industry. And you still see this now, which is basically coaching is the fastest growing industry on the planet. It's not. Well, it's the fastest growing if you talk about supply, but not demand. The actual demand for coaching is definitely higher than it was 20 years ago. But when back in 2006, I'm pretty sure there are only 2 other life coaches in Orlando. Okay, which is not, for UK standards, Orlando would probably be the 3rd biggest city in the UK. I bet there's 300 now. So the demand hasn't, and I don't know. There's a lot. There's certainly 3 figures, but demand hasn't gone up by the same level. And what happened is, so in my Facebook group, when the pandemic hit, I started to see a lot more people joining the group. And when I went to, because I check everybody that comes into the group, and if I think they're a marketer, they don't get in, and they lie, I'll go and check the profile or the website or what have you. And I was starting to see former hairdresser, previous restaurant manager, this guy, so people that had lost their job. So you got all these people that all of a sudden were out of work or staring at the threat of losing their job. It's like, well, I've always wondered about being a coach. So I'll go and be a coach. Everybody's online now. So that was another sort of bonus for people, not realizing that, 10,000, 50,000, however many it was, we're doing the same thing. So all these companies are saying, this is the way to make money. And I know at one point, I don't know what this figure is now, it could be more, it could be less, but at one point there was almost 500 training companies in the US, training coaches out now. If you think about that, if they're only averaging 20 each a year, that's 10,000 coaches, and I'm pretty sure some of them are churning out hundreds, some of the really big ones. So,
and that's only like registered.
Right. Exactly.
Because you have like, I could open a certification program tomorrow and be like, woo, and I'm not going to be in that 500.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, let's do it. We can do it. You've got a podcast. Let's do it. Yeah. So all you need is a printer. You probably don't even need a printer now. Who prints anything off these days? So, So there was just this massive explosion during the pandemic. And the thing is, you see, if you're a coach, my sister and my brother-in-law used to own a restaurant. And every time a new place opened, say that, and theirs was like a French bistro with live jazz and what have you, and a pizza place had opened, and it'd be like getting down about it. I'm saying, no, that's not a competition for you. He says, yeah, but they need to take one table a night. It's just one table, and that suddenly, it chips away at your profit. These coaches coming in, they may not be successful, but they are taking. Some of them are taking clients. I mean, I do know coaches that have never had a paying client, but they're taking the odd paying client, or they're doing pro bono work. So somebody that may have hired a coach is now doing, or the cardinal sin for me as a coach is that they're coaching friends, which you should never do, because you've already got an idea of what's right for them, whether you think you have or not. You should never be coaching family or friends. It's a cardinal sin. So, it's getting harder and harder, even for coaches that are already established, unless they were very well established. And so you get this dilution of the industry, and you get people scrapping for more. And then you get people spotting desperate life coaches. And guess what? I can sell you a solution to your desperation. I can tell you how to make, 7K in 7 days for $7 or what, some other stupid Facebook ad. And people are desperate and they see it. And it's like, well, let's give it a go. They don't know that they've just dived into a funnel that's going to just move them down and down and down. Some of these people, as I said, are really good. I mean, they're really on point. The messaging, the branding, it's just, I look at them, I think, yeah, I can see how somebody that wanted to be a coach would get sucked into this, because I think I probably would if I didn't know what I know now. I think more importantly, some of these people don't give a fuck, but they can pretend that they do. So they're just, it's not even the money. I think it's the power with a lot of people. They're full on sort of narcissist, sociopaths.
Yeah, I think that's a space for an interesting conversation, because this is something that, like, I'll do live streams every week, and in the chat often we're like having this discussion about whether or not, and I still don't really know the answer, but whether or not the people who are like the large players in the game, the ones that maybe allegedly are making, 7-8 figures in this industry, do they actively know the harm that they're causing? Considering, I'm assuming they're getting lots of refund requests, unhappy emails, that kind of thing. Or do they not realize, and they genuinely think they're like helping people because, some of their clients are making money? I'm like, I don't know if there's like some severe cognitive dissonance that's going on. I don't know if you just get blinded by the money, the power that you're making, that you don't care anymore. I can't see a world in which clients would be like, in any business that I've owned, if a client was coming to me asking for a refund, I would immediately take that as like, okay, what's wrong with my service? How can I improve it?
Right.
Versus just like, oh, it's her problem. She's just crazy and my stuff is fine because this person over here is happy. Like, I don't know. There's something there that doesn't add up for me.
Yeah, I think it's very easy. Self-delusion is very powerful. And it could be a combination that either these people so really believe what they believe, and they just shut out contrary information. It's kind of like, well, it's just an outlier. It's very easy to do that, and the further you go into it, the more you do it. Do you know what I mean? So that's kind of when you get into it like that. It's like they just cannot accept it. It's not that they necessarily think it. They probably don't even think it's true, because the brain won't allow them to accept that this is legit, that they're actually ruining people's lives, or guess what? It's their fault. It's their fault. They didn't do the work. Now, here's the thing, Daniel. Most of the not most of the clients. If you said to me, how many of your clients make it? I'd say about 25%. Okay, now you'd be like, whoa, well, I don't want to work with that guy. But I can point to reasons every time why people don't. The biggest single reason, without a shadow of a doubt, is time. The amount of time you need to put into it. I spend 25 hours a week at least on my marketing, and that's just to remain where I am. For new coaches, I won't take on a coach if they haven't got at least 10 hours a week to work on the marketing, unless they're not in a hurry to make money. So if you come to me and say, yeah, I did a consult about 2-3 weeks ago with a woman who got to earn 100 grand in the first year, you can't do it unless you're going to be plowing 50 hours a week, or you can use pay-per-click ads. You just can't do it. Tell me how you go. If you know how to do it, tell me, and I'll go and sell the idea, because I have no clue how to do that, and I know this industry and marketing reasonably well. So yeah, so it kind of, you can't expect everybody to do that course to succeed. But I would love to know what the actual percentage of the people that go through some of these really, because they're expensive. And that's the other thing as well. If you've spent that, the more money you spend on a program, the less likely you are to question it. That's just psychology. The more you invest in it, the more invested you are, and the less you can see. You're looking for information to support the beliefs you've already got. I made a good decision here to accept that you fucked up when you handed 20 grand over to some raving narcissist, that is a really difficult thing for people to do, for anybody. And that would include me. It's just difficult. So we look for things, well, it was maybe my fault or what. So that's how cults, that's the basis of every cult.
100%. And I think that that's really how the conversation becomes so nuanced, is because, okay, I have, Sarah over here selling this program where she's guaranteeing you're going to make $30 million in 5 minutes. And then Jessica over here buys Sarah's program and she spends 20 grand to be in the container. But then Jessica's like, I don't think that this is working. I don't have the time, like you mentioned, to, build this business. But it's not Sarah's fault, even though Sarah never told me I was going to need to invest 50 hours a week in order to make that.
Right.
It's my fault because, I didn't do my due diligence to understand what the program was. Well, you didn't really have the opportunity to do your due diligence because you're on this high pressure sales call where Sarah's making you pay right away. And so it gets the psychology of it, I think, gets very complicated. And so maybe, Jessica finishes the program. She doesn't make the money. She's out the 20 grand. She ends up in this situation, and this is something that I've seen time and time again from the people I've interviewed on my channel, and even from my own experience, where, like you said, you start making all these excuses of like, well, maybe I didn't make the $10 million I was promised, but I learned how to use Canva templates on my Instagram, so that's great. And you start like gaslighting yourself into all these excuses of like how it could be worth it. Like, it took me probably 5 years to realize that, like, no, Danielle, like, you got scammed. Someone sold you on something and delivered the opposite. So it's like, there's so much sort of like unraveling, I think, that you have to do because, like you've mentioned, and I've said this in a lot of my content, there are a lot of like cult-like overlaps with the way the verbiage these people use, the type of like narratives that they sell you on. And when you're surrounded by this group of other people, assuming you're in like a mastermind or something like that, of all these yes men who are like, no, we love it. This is right. This is good. Like, you're not going to question it because you're not really given the opportunity when no one else around you is asking those questions.
And you think you're the only one. There's a famous psychology test where they showed 6 people, different length straws. And they were, one was clearly bigger than the others. I think it was straws. But anyway, so they had 5 confederates and 1 person who was the actual subject. And they went and they came last to that person. And they asked people, are they all the same length? And they all said yes. And they got to this person, and that person almost always said yes, when it was clear that one, because they were just influenced by other people. So if you're in a group like that, it's very difficult to break away. But, that's just how we are wired up, to go with the tribe, because if we don't, guess what? You could be an outcast, and that's going to lead to you being outside the tribe. You're going to die, basically. So it's all, it's very clever psychology to do this kind of thing. And, it works. But I think you talk about, I can land on these sites. I trace this back, and I don't I do want to name her, but I'm not going to knock her, but everything seems to stem back almost to Marie Forleo. The times I drop on a website and think, fuck me, I bet you any money she did B school, and then it did, and she's a fabulous marketer.
100%.
She really is. I'm not knocking her, and she's obviously super successful, and she's nailed it. But I see there's almost like a tree from it, a little bit like there is now on the coaching side. And you land on these sites, and it's almost like, even though they're good, they look the same, don't they? There's something about, I can't even put my finger on it, but there's something from the photos to the copy to the, emojis and just everything. It's all like talking to this person, and I don't know. Maybe I can see it more, Danielle, because I'm a guy and an old guy, and I just like, what? I don't even know what that means, that kind of thing. Was using this language, so I can look at it and think, well, has nobody cottoned on that this is that? And it's, there's a number of the coaches where I've been in the Facebook groups or observed from the outside. I went to the funnel of an Amy Porterfield thing not that long ago, and I was listening to a sales pitch. I'm like, these people don't even know they're being pitched to. I mean, very good. Again, she, I mean, I remember back in the day when she just did Facebook and what have you. It was, very polished, and I could see again why people. And that's the art of it, isn't it? The art of it is pitching to people and them not knowing that they're being pitched to. That guess what? She's just your friend.
Exactly.
Once you think that, you're in a bit of a hole.
And that's the dangerous part too, I think, is like, if we come into the coaching space and I look at some of the people that I know who are still like very deep into not really seeing what's going on, I think that the camaraderie piece of it, especially with women, it's like you get stuck in it because you feel like these people are your friends. So you're paying this mentor and they act like they care about you and your life outside of coaching. But the second you stop paying them, they fall off the face of the earth and never to be seen again. It's like the relationship is very transactional, but I think that you don't see that when you're in it because, again, you're all sort of, in there pumping each other's tires up, having a good time, building our, 6-figure businesses or whatever. But it's all just like superficial for
10K months.
Exactly.
I don't know when who first said the 10K month thing, but please, I don't want to see another 10. And I do want to stress again as well that I don't, I'm not belittling these people at all.
Never.
I totally get why people. I don't even, I was going to say then in my head, I'd said why people get suckered into it. I don't even want to say that because that sounds like they're a sucker. They're not. Why people get sucked into it would be more accurate. When we moved to where we are now, my wife, we were looking for a fridge freezer and she found this one on the internet. It was about £200 cheaper than another one. I went to the site and my first reaction was, this site looks a bit dubious. And then at the time, I used to use a tool called Ahrefs, which is like used by SEOs. I thought I never even went and checked it. I got all the tools where I could have gone and checked this site and found out this site was only about a month old. But it was like I didn't. I went and ordered the fucking freezer. Of course, it never came. Now we got the money back because I bought it on a credit card rather than a bank transfer. You're protected. But even so, it's like, and I was saying to myself afterwards, what were you thinking? And the answer is I really wasn't thinking I can save £200 because everything was in short supply as well because of the pandemic. So who else had even got it? This place is selling it at a cut price. So it can happen to anybody. I talked about it in the post that I did in the Reddit subreddit today that even psychologists, they ran a test with psychological anchoring where you give a higher price. They usually do it with numbers. You ask people to guess how many balls are in the jar, for example, and you'll give a big number. It's something like, I've been doing this 50,000 times, this test or whatever. And then you ask people what the number is, and depending on the number you give them, that you anchor them to, their number will be closer. And this has been replicated again and again. They tried it with psychology professors who knew why they were doing it, and they still fell for it. So this stuff is powerful. And anybody can get scammed. Anybody.
100%. I did a video recently where I talk about the psychology of why people fall for the scam. And there's a piece, I always forget what it's called, but it's like a form of bias in that a lot of the times if you consider yourself to be an intelligent person, because that's something that I hear a lot is like, I'm smart. I don't know how I fell for this. It's the idea that because I'm smart, I shouldn't fall for a scam. So you don't look for the red flags. Okay. You don't do the due diligence because you think I'm too smart to ever get scammed. So this couldn't possibly be a scam.
Right.
And then you end up signing up for the program, doing whatever, because you just think you're above it.
Yeah. I mean, that and that, it's easy because you do tend to think of people who get scammed. Oh, well, they're old, or they were a bit, they're not very smart or whatever.
Exactly.
But I know super smart people, and I think when you think that, that's when you're most vulnerable. There's a book called Confidence Game. I can't remember the woman that wrote it now. Do you know it? It's really good, and it talks some about, especially the long cons when they're doing it over a period of time.
Exactly.
And it's anybody can get suckered in by that, and I think, but I suppose the flip side is knowing we can get suckered into it, but being cynical all the time.
Yeah.
It's getting that balance where you don't want to be, it's like a charity. Do you want to donate this charity? Are you trying to come? Are you trying to rip me off? Are you going to take my credit card? And so there's getting that balance right, and, without being suckered in easily. I suppose it's tough. It's not it's not easy to do. And these people are professionals. They're professional at what they do.
100%. And I think that's why it's important to have conversations like this. And I know in a lot of my content, I always try to wrap it up with like, okay, so it's not about the particular people. I don't really name names. It's more about, the behaviors, the things they're saying, because in this industry specifically, I think a lot of the tactics are the same from person to person, program to program.
Yeah.
The way they market, the things they do, it doesn't matter if it's Marie Forleo, Amy Porterfield, Brooke Castillo. They all, at the end of the day, are using the same strategies to get people into their funnel, to get people to pay them money. So I know that you did your post about this on Reddit, which I'll link in the description, but I'd be curious to hear what you think some of those sort of like recurring red flags are, or things that people should look out for if they're, they want, maybe help growing their coaching business. They want advice, mentorship, that kind of thing. What are the things that they should be looking out for to avoid getting scammed?
I think the number one thing is people telling you it's easy or it's quick. That's the one, classic rule of marketing is you want to tell people something's easy. You might lead with this isn't really easy, but guess what? I've got I have got the roadmap to be easy. I think that's the most important thing. And to be asking, is this too good to be true? And it almost always, if something's too good to be true, 9 times out of 10, it's too good to be true. And what these people that get talked about in the subreddit do really well is like the velvet rope approach, which is basically you pitch your product so high. I can remember there was a woman, and I won't name her, I can still remember the name, but I'm going back now, I don't know, 15 years, just after Twitter started. I'm going back 2008. And she was charging back then for coaching $500 an hour. And I had a conversation with her offline, probably on Skype, if anybody can remember Skype. I think it's still going, actually. But, and she got no training. Her background was marketing. And she clearly had no clue what she was doing. And she sold an entire course, an 8-week course on the back on asking for testimonials. I can teach that in 5 minutes. So I think look for something that's high priced. Is it high priced because it's brilliant, or is that part of the technique because we want, as human beings, it's status. We want that because it makes us feel good. I invested this or whatever. So look for that as well. If something's more than $5,000, you may want to take a step back and think, well, why is it that much? Is it the value or is it just a marketing technique? And just research the people, not at a surface level. You've got to go deeper. And again, I said in the post that these people are good at reputation management. I mean, there's a couple of them where it's falling down now, where they probably can't, hold the tide back because there's so much. But they'll have buried a lot of bad, negative press. So just do your research. And the best bit of advice is walk away for like 7 days. Walk away, think about it. Don't ever be pressured. I would never, ever say to a client, this price goes away. Even if it did, if I'm on a call with somebody, even if I was running an offer to my newsletter and it ends, I always say, okay, look, it's supposed to finish today, that, yeah, but I'll come back to me when you're ready, and then if you want to go ahead, unless there's only one place or what have you. So it's recognizing I'm being pushed. If you're being pushed, well, why? Have you ever been pushed by Apple? Other than with the advertiser, have you ever been where else have you been pushed? Have you ever walked into a restaurant and said, well, you've got to order now, or there's going to be no steak left? It's ridiculous. So walk away.
I was thinking about that yesterday. It came up, somebody had made a post on Threads about like high pressure sales. And I was commenting how even in my business now, in like content creation, I can't imagine a brand ever post or approaching me and then my response being like, I'll work with you, but you have to sign up right now and pay me. Otherwise, like you're already starting the relationship off in like such a high tension position.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you're having to like essentially convince someone to work with you. And so I've just never understood the approach of like get
It
someone on a
it
sales call and
works
close
though.
them.
It does work. There are so you get two types of salespeople, or three really. The type of sales that are successful, the type that works on building rapport, getting to know people, and so on and so forth. And then you get the really good technical salespeople that are just like they know exactly the structure of the sale and where to take people. And the really good ones are the ones that do both. But I've seen good technical people just batter and batter and batter and get deals where I'm just thinking, fuck me, I would have gone home an hour ago, you know. So it does work. People, I mean, what then the buyer's remorse rate is like with people cancelling, because certainly in the UK, you've got a legal 14-day cooling off period. So you're going to get a lot of people asking for the money back. I'm not sure how it works long term, but I honestly don't know.
And that's more what I mean is like, I understand that the tactics work, but I think as a service provider myself, why would I want to have to like force someone to want to work with me? It's like, to me, there's
It's because
already
you're a nice
tension in the
person.
relationship, I
It's
guess.
because you're
And
a
then that
nice,
leads me back to
reasonable
like,
person. Yeah.
do these people know what they're doing, or do they just have no self-awareness and they can't realize that their clients are only there because they force them to be?
I'm in a Facebook group for some really big hitters, and I tend to just observe and watch and read the conversations because I don't particularly want to get and yeah, I mean they're talking about teams of closers all the time, and it's interesting. And I think to them it's a bit of a game. It's
Yeah.
a bit like anybody with a lot of money. There was this apparently the richest man in Germany. This was a few years ago now. The richest man in Germany, the latest chart or table for the richest man in Germany, he dropped down to second, and he threw himself under a train. He couldn't deal with being second. So I think for a lot of people, it's just a game. It's just a numbers game. I talk about getting above people. There's nobody hurt in my game with SEO or content marketing, but I think with if you listen to almost any interview with Brooke Castillo, it's just about how much money. It's just the figures. The figures. That's all I've ever. I haven't listened to that many interviews of hers, but I've listened to a few, and it's just all she's just
$100
obsessed
million.
with money. Yeah, and it's the same with because I think she's quite tight with. I don't know about tight, but with Russell Brunson. And he's the same. Oh, we've got the $7 club. Now they've got it's the 2 comma club. Now it's the 3 comma club. And now you've got to get 10 million to be in it. It's just this like pissing competition between them. At what point do you think, I've got enough? I could actually live a really nice life now and probably help a few people. But it's a table. It's a game, isn't it, with them? And it's never going to be enough. Brooke must have a hole in her heart.
It's never going to be filled.
I'm sure that, I'm sure. I mean, I don't want to psychoanalyze it because I don't know it. But there's something going on, isn't there? It's just like, I need more money.
Yeah. And then, that could lead into a whole conversation of
where
that obsession comes from. So
childhood thing. Tell me about your childhood. Yeah.
But I just think like, I don't know. And I guess it's just my personality, but I'm like, most people, I think, get into coaching because they like genuinely want to help people. And so it's so fascinating to me to then end up in this position where you kind of like forego actually helping people and instead just are on this pursuit of making as much money as possible. We were watching a gentleman who claims to be a like $100 million earner in coaching. This was on a live stream earlier this week. And he was telling about his like sales strategy. And it was similar to what you had just mentioned. He's like, I'll get on a 15-minute call with them to build rapport, but I don't really care what they say to me. It's just to like pretend that I'm interested. And then I'll call them back the next day and do the actual sales pitch. And to me, I was just like, how disgusting
are you
is
not
that?
going to name this person?
You can watch the stream. His name's Tanner Chittister. I don't know if you're familiar. He's in like the fitness coaching space. It came out actually after the fact that I guess he went through the traffic and funnels program, which was dinged by the FTC last year for running as like an income scheme. So lots of interesting stuff there, which again, I can link that article in the description of this video as well. But it was just the idea of like, getting someone on a call to pretend you care about them to then build rapport so that I can sell to them tomorrow. Like, I can't wrap my head around that.
No, and you can't, for somebody to say that, it's bad enough thinking about it, but how arrogant have you got to be to say that when you're being filmed and think that's okay? So I think there's something weird going on there. And,
And that was like a training funnel to get to like buy into his program. We were watching the like
right,
sales pitch. So that was part of the sales pitch was like, I'm going to teach you
bizarre.
how I make $100 million. And I was like, so basically you're outing yourself in this conversation.
Yeah. It's like Succession, isn't it? Like these people are battling to be on an episode of Succession. It's
Oh,
just
something.
it's so bizarre. I mean, I've heard stories like that before. I talked about there was one a friend of mine got on a call for uh, clients on demand and was told to the closer, whoever it was, would wait while she went and applied for another credit card on another phone or whatever. I'm not sure. It's just like, really? You're going to ask me? How do you sleep at night? I can remember a client telling me years ago now, probably 15 years ago, that he borrowed the money. I was like, I felt physically apprehensive, like,
Mm-hmm.
holy, I have really got to deliver now. This guy's borrowed money to work with me. I don't want that financial pressure on me, somebody, but anyway, here we
But
are.
you see that a lot of like, oh, just take out a loan, put it on a credit card, ask your dad. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I couldn't do that.
it's so interesting. I think there's so much psychology that I don't understand that must go on behind the scenes of like what makes people do the things they do. And I find it fascinating.
But think about this, Daniel. So if you look at, you said most people are going to coaching, you think want to help people. I 100% agree with that. But if you think about any industry, you've always got people that are in it for the wrong reasons. So
For
if you
sure.
look at all the people that are making big money that are not necessarily scamming people, but really on the edges, well, the percentage of people trying to do that isn't that high. It's just that because they really know the marketing or learn the marketing or hire people, they're more visible. It's like you go on the internet, and you've got crazy wild extremes. Well, most people aren't like that. It's just that these people are more visible, they're more vocal, you're more likely to see them. We don't see the 1,000 coaches that are out there helping people, that aren't shouting from the rooftops how wonderful they are, that aren't having glammed up photos or what have you. So we tend to think, oh, well, the industry's just full of grifters. It's actually not. I've not met that many life coaches that I didn't really like. Pretty much all my clients. I think I've had about 2 bad clients ever. They just seem to be nice people to me, and I think most people are like that. So I think we can give them, or start to become cynical and think, well, that's the industry. No, it's not. It's just a few people that are making the rest of the industry look bad.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the value in these conversations. And the woman I had mentioned earlier, Suzanne, that I interviewed on the channel, actively is a life coach. And I think that you're right in saying that the people that are loudest are the ones that we tend to like associate with the industry. And from
Mm-hmm.
the conversations I've had, at least, most of the people that I'm aware of that have, sustainable life coaching businesses will say, like, probably not making even 6 figures, but enough that they can live off of the money they're making. They aren't on Instagram. They're not making TikTok videos.
Right.
They have their website, their blog, whatever, and they're actively
Yeah.
coaching. They're not
Mm-hmm.
focusing on the like flashy marketing. And so I think that because of that, those people kind of tend to get lost in the mess of
Yeah.
all of the bullshit that's happening.
And they have to deal with it. So when I first qualified, or got certified, people would say to me, "What are you doing?" I'd be like, "I'm a life coach," and the response would be, "Oh, a life coach, that's interesting. What's that then?" Now it's like, "Oh, fucking, I'm not another one." Everybody's a life coach, and I'm quite, I really encourage my clients not to call themselves life coaches now, because it's broad, nobody really knows what it is, but because it gets this pushback from people, it's like, because there's been so many documentaries or podcasts or whatever it is, or negative press about the coaching industry, and they get lumped with it when they may be highly competent coaches. But that's just how it is.
Yeah. So then I guess this is a question I get asked a lot in my DMs, and I'd be curious to hear your answer is like, if someone is actively a coach and they don't want to identify with the term, life coach, what should they be calling themselves? What should they be focusing on when it comes to their marketing? Like for me, I'm always like, well, don't be guaranteeing people income results because a life coach shouldn't be doing that anyway.
No,
But I'd be
absolutely
curious to
not.
hear your thoughts.
Well, it will be niche specific. So I don't, I've not got a problem with the word coach because, coach is synonymous with, with athletics and
For
with
sure.
music or performance or whatever. So I'm okay with the coach. But I would just steer clear of life coach, a stress management coach, or a keto coach, or I was going to say ADHD coach, but there's a training company for ADHD coaches. It's spewed out hundreds of them. I see them all over LinkedIn, so I'm not sure that's an area I'd want to go in. But something specific that really targets your audience and speaks direct to a problem that they may have. Just not a coach for coaching. I mean, when I started doing this, there was nobody doing it. Now it's like, oh, yeah, I get it on Facebook. Oh, another coach that works with coaches, couldn't make it yourself. Oh, fucking hell. So which is why I picked up the name Angry Coach for Reddit, because it frustrates the hell out of me, because I have to then start trying to differentiate myself from the others. And now I see other people trying to differentiate themselves like I am, because they can't differentiate and they are new, and you get into this mess where people are unsure. And it's never, looping back to what we were talking about at the beginning, it's never been more important for coaches to really have a strong brand, to really understand the messaging and using the values and being themselves, like unapologetic. You've got to be you, because there will always be people that like you. Maybe not the majority, but there'll be people that like you. So for anybody asking, don't focus too much on the name. Focus more on your branding and your messaging and getting your personality out there. It doesn't matter whether you're introvert, extrovert, just being you, I guess.
I think that's helpful. And it's really like I always tell people, just stay rooted in what your intention was. So if I,
Right.
became a coach to help people with their confidence, let's say, okay, then that needs to be my focus when I'm coming and I'm creating that content. I'm
Right.
marketing myself, coming up with my messaging. I'm thinking about, how is my intention to help people feel more confident? How can I speak that into my content? Versus again, the trap that we see time and time again of like, well, it's just easier to tell people I know how to make a bunch of money. So I'm going to do that instead.
Yeah. Well, if we were running a course and I was running a course that was how to make you happy in 7 days, and you were running a course how to make $1 million in 7 days, people believed us, they believed both of us, you would outsell me 50 to 1. Now, people want the money because they think they'll make them happy. So, but you can always sell money. It's the easiest ROI. So, what people,
Exactly.
you'll be happy. Not really sure. It's quite abstract happiness. Not really sure what that is. Well, I'll take the money and then I'll figure out the happiness afterwards. We all do it. So when people start you, and I do want to get clients sometimes to pitch round an ROI. You have to get an ROI of some description. Now, if it's money, so if you're a career coach, it can be money, because it could be, I can help you, not I will. I can help you get a new job, But when we get into the realms of things like confidence, it's difficult to put an ROI on that. It really is. But you have to come up with one, because people have to have something to relate to. And if you can use money and it's legit, then you should use it, but not promise.
No.
It's the and not the. Oh, I keep going back to the 100K years and 10K months, which has just
Exactly.
exploded about 40, and I'm just sick of seeing it now.
Yeah. And that's like always my biggest thing is like, in my opinion, I would avoid any kind of, income guarantees because in
Definitely,
no
yeah.
business ever can you promise that.
No, you can't. You literally can't. It's
No.
bogus. And I think that should be elite. I mean, I know there'll be loads of small print saying, guarantee this at the bottom. Don't really, but yeah, just forget that. And is this going to teach you how to be a coach and teach you the basics in marketing? The answer is yes. You can afford it, and that's fine.
And there's so many resources now available, I'm sure, like versus even when you started that
There were
it
none
doesn't.
when I started.
Yeah. So like to pay $10,000 for a basic marketing
Yeah,
program, like you could find a lot of that stuff elsewhere on the internet for free or cheaper.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about my job because 61, and then I'll retire at some point, and it's not it doesn't matter to me. But I think I would be if I was 20 years younger. I mean that AI thing's a whole different. It really concerns me. Coaches need to be on that now and understanding that, ignoring it and thinking it'll go away when it's just accelerating, especially with the new text to video. That is really foolish. I mean, I'm trying to keep on top of it. Just, I suppose it interests me.
100%. Yeah, there's a lot of space to really figure out, I guess, like how to differentiate yourself in the market as things start to evolve more rapidly. So, well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming and chatting.
Sorry if I do tend to ramble and get off on one, but I enjoyed it. Thanks, Danielle.
Once again, big shout out, big thank you to Tim for sharing his insight, sharing his experience here on the channel. I will have all of his information linked down below if you're interested in learning more. If you have your own coaching experience or coaching scam story that you want to share, I have a form that you can fill out, linked in the description. Thank you so much for being here. Please consider giving this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and stay safe out there, friends. Don't get scammed. Now, if you're interested in hearing the story of a woman, a neurodivergent woman at that, who was scammed by a YouTube business coaching guru, you're gonna wanna click this video right here, okay? Okay, take care, comb your hair. I will see you in my next video. Bye!